You can strengthen your stride, you can lengthen your drive, you could build bigger muscles and still wonder why. Why your back keeps aching, why your hips feel tight, why your core won't stabilize no matter how hard you fight. You could chase more power, you could train more speed, but ignore your foundation and eventually something will leave. A leak, a strain, a loss of control, a body that's strong but no longer whole. Because every movement starts somewhere, not in your hands, not in your feet, not even in your spine. It starts below. Out of sight, but never out of the fight. Hidden beneath every breath, every squat, every sprint, every jump, working quietly until one day it stops. So before we talk about muscles, let's talk about the one holding everything together. Because if the foundation isn't right, nothing built above can stand and fight. The strongest body in the world isn't built by chasing more. It's built from the ground and strengthened by the floor. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tech Talks, where we take the science of direct current performance recovery and movement and hopefully make it entertaining enough that you forget you're actually learning something. I'm Jake, Director of Training here at NerveOTX, and once again, I'm joined by our head athletic trainer, Mason, and the only guy who I know that reads the OSHA regulations for fun like they're some sort of best-selling thriller series. I'm pretty sure he's got bookmarks, highlights, and probably even a favorite chapter.
Most definitely. And first of all, Jake, chapter 29, CFR 1910, it's a classic.
Chapter 29, point proven. Mason's over here like, wait, don't spoil the ending. I'm just getting to the part about the hazard communication.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Although after hearing today's topic, I was hoping you'd introduce me more so as the guy who definitely didn't volunteer for this episode.
You mean pelvic floor?
Exactly. Half of the audience just shifted uncomfortably in their chairs a little bit.
Which is funny because every single one of them has a pelvic floor.
It's so true. It's one of the only muscles everyone owns, but almost nobody wants to admit that they should probably pay attention to.
And you know what's crazy about that, Mason? If we titled today's episode Build Bigger Biceps, we'd probably have twice as many viewers. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. Because everyone wants the muscles that they can see. Very few people want to train the ones that actually keep everything working.
It's kind of like buying a lifted truck with chrome wheels and then finding out the frame underneath is rusted in half, right?
I agree with that. And I think only we would compare the human body to a truck.
Well, to be fair, they both start making weird noises when you ignore the maintenance.
Yeah, fair enough. And today's muscle is one that gets ignored by athletes, parents, weekend warriors, office workers like you and I. And pretty much everyone until something starts hurting or leaking. And that's the part nobody likes talking about. Everybody wants to talk about strength. Nobody wants to talk about why they have to cross their legs before they sneeze. And unlike Jake's truck analogies, building your pelvic floor is a foundation that does actually matter.
True, but unless you're talking to Skeeter, who puts more time and money into his jacked up Ram truck than he does in his own child support, let's roll the intro! No fluff, no filters, just real talk, real tech, and real outcomes. So lock in, turn it up, and let's get after it. This is Tech Talks. Mason, good to see you. Happy Tech Talks Thursday.
Happy Tech Talks Thursday, man. I feel like we always, that's the first thing we say on Thursdays to each other is Happy Tech Talk Thursday. We're excited for it.
It usually is. And guess what? I just crossed my legs and not worried about sneezing at all because I got a strong pelvic floor, I think, because I got direct current.
No, you had the khakis on, so it's probably good that you just get that second level of protection there too.
That's true. He's right. I'm wearing diapers these days. I'm 900 years old. Hey, before we dig into the steak, we got some things to open up and unpack because I want to do a little flashback. You know, we're still going on to the World Cup, and I know I'm going to nauseate people about this soccer stuff, but I've been locked in. I want to share something with everybody, including you, Mason. Let's go back like 4 weeks. Here we go. Check this out. Mm-hmm. We're kind of on the subject. Other than the U.S., who's your World Cup pick?
I gotta go with Spain, man. I'm a big Yamal guy. I mean, young stud. He's 17. I think he's 18 now, but he is just unreal. And then they've got 2 or 3 more guys just like him. So I think I'm gonna have to go with Spain. I will say though, France looked pretty solid the other evening, so I think they could be a really good, strong contender too.
Yeah.
What about
Two
you?
of the top two talking about it. I'm a Messi fan. I like him. I'm
Yeah.
going for Argentina. I think they're kind of the underdogs for the most part, even though, they have a good name, but they're playing well. I thought Messi looked good. So if it's not the US pulling this unbelievable upset, then it's gonna be Argentina. Okay, come on. Are we soccer geniuses or what?
Who said we weren't experts? Did anybody? I mean, we were hearing that, I feel like, left and right when the World Cup first started. These guys are so out of their lane, so out of their league. I don't know so much anymore.
Apparently not. I mean, I kind of knew we were good at it. We've been talking about how smart we are at soccer since the beginning. So since we're both right, I think we should put a little wager in. You picked Spain. I picked Argentina. They're playing on Sunday. What do you think? I think the loser should be shamed, should be embarrassed, ridiculed, low life.
You don't want to lean into the winner, getting put up on a pedestal or anything like that. You're going more the other route.
Nothing is more rewarding to a winner than to shame the loser. Every American knows this. Come on, let's be honest.
It's pretty on theme with the show, I feel like, too. So, understandable.
To be fair, Mason and I talked about this off camera. The loser next week will be sporting nothing better but then the crown of despair, and will be shamed the entire Tech Talks and have to wear this the entire Tech Talks. Just saying.
It's like a participation trophy. It's like a participation trophy, basically, at this point. So, yeah, no, we're looking forward to it. Sunday will be interesting. Jake and I'm sure, will be going back and forth a majority of the day. But yeah, you guys saw it here first. Jake and I, soccer experts of the world, weeks ago, had our picks locked in. They're the only two still standing. So we got to put a little something fun on it.
Absolutely. Fun stuff. The World Cup has been a good time. Thanks for everybody for joining in. Don't forget to like, share, hit the bell and the subscribe button so you can continue to enjoy these. And we got some good stuff coming in. And so before we unpack everything and all the table is set, let's get into the part everyone came here for. The meat and potatoes, the main course. This is where we stop dancing around the topic, cut straight through the noise, and get into the main flavor of the conversation, a little segment we like to call Steak. Your core has a pelvic floor. Well, your core has a floor, but it's pelvic floor. And this is where we're at, Mason. And boom, let's unpack this. Before we even do it, this is, I think a lot of guys think this doesn't apply to them. And I think you'll find if you are a guy and you're watching this, you're going to be hopefully educated on how important this is for you as well.
Yeah. It's super applicable to really the entire population. Every human has a pelvic floor. So as much as we like to think that this is really only for the women, it's applicable to everybody. You can be affected positively or negatively by your pelvic floor, no matter male or female. So, we're going to talk about how this is applicable to that. And to kind of set the stage for those people watching and wondering, well, what is the pelvic floor? I've heard this term thrown around a bunch. I'm going to try to break it down in the best way possible. I'm sure there's plenty of other clinicians out there that can break it down a lot better than me. But kind of as a high level overview, really what the pelvic floor is it's a complex of different muscles. And the main ones are going to be the puborectalis, the pubococcygeus, the iliococcygeus, and the coccygeus. And the first three that I listed off are going to be part of a group that they call the levator ani. But basically what the pelvic floor is it's a bowl or a pouch is what it's been described as, that sits above the pelvis below all of your organs that sit in that area. And it's responsible for a lot of different things. So it's responsible for supporting your posture along with the abdominal muscles and the diaphragm. I think the one that people know the most is that if you cough, laugh, or sneeze, it's going to be helpful with preventing incontinence or urination, unwanted urination, or unwanted bowel movements. So I know it's a little uncomfortable to talk about that, but these are real things that happen when the pelvic floor becomes weak. So that's really its main responsibilities, along with a lot of other things, supporting the reproductive organs, like mentioned, keeping the core stable and the body fully aligned. And we don't think about these muscles until they start to fail, because they're always activated, they're always contracting, they're autonomic. And so they're just, if with them always going on, they don't come to the front of our mind. But when they start to fail, they become a big issue. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about today, is how to counteract that.
You know, that's a really good breakdown as we go back into this. And you're right. You know, it's kind of, maybe some of this is a little uncomfortable to talk about, but it's probably going to be more uncomfortable for you if you are not focusing on this, whether you're male or female. This is something that's super important. Now, Mason, you said a lot of big words there, but ultimately what we're going to try to break down is the simplicity of what direct current can do to help strengthen that. You don't need to know the deeper science, but it's good to dig into it to know where it's coming from. And, you know, the first portion of this is, you know, kind of breaking down, waking up the muscle. And we got here 40 pulses per second. Anybody who knows direct current understands that, you know, what we've seen on 40 pulses is it dials in better, probably goes a little bit heavier and deeper in a specific point. But we're using this for pelvic floor. Mason, would you mind breaking this first one down for us?
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there, Jake. For people that are familiar with direct current, if they've been watching along with us, they know that we utilize the 40 pulses per second to really isolate that muscle activation. Focus in on a certain muscle or a muscle group. It's used on a smaller span of area. And so that's exactly what we're kind of doing here. You know, if you watched the surgery episode or the Tommy John's episode, that our goal really when we start with direct current is to get those muscles firing again, get them activated, get those spark plugs cleaned out. So then we can start to facilitate more movement. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, that's what we're doing here in this first stage with that 40 pulses per second, is we're getting the muscles more excited, more activated, and getting those contractions facilitated so we can start to work on that strengthening.
And now on this diagram, and this is going to be for anybody who has a direct current. If you have an AC unit or TENS unit, you're not going to see these results. It's just, you know, it's apples to oranges. They're not the same things. But if you do have direct current, we have some pad placements here, Mason, and we're sparking them up for a reason, no pun intended. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah. So what we've got here with the 40 pulses per second setup is we've got those black leads, and I've already got it set up here on my mannequin, but we've got those black leads on the adductors, middle portion of the adductors. Let me turn them here a little bit so you can see. So black pad's going to be on that middle portion of the adductors. And then what we're doing is we're running that red pad or that passive pad up to the lower core, kind of the middle area of the core. The goal with this is to send that current through that pathway, and it's going to hit the pelvic floor as well as the supporting structures around. Not just isolating the pelvic floor. It's quite hard to do just with the positioning and where that structure is. We can't just place a pad right on it. But what we can do is we can start to activate not only the pelvic floor, but the supporting musculature as well, getting everything to work a little bit more synergistically.
So we're taking these pads now with 40. I'm about to play a video. There's certain movements that you're going to recommend with direct current, possibly some isometrics and some other things. How about we talk through this? Let me put the video up and then let's go ahead and start to explain this.
And yeah, like Jake said, with the 40 pulses per second, what you're going to see a lot of the time is it's going to be exercises that don't involve as big of a range of movement. So with this first one, 90-90 breathing, why do we go into that 90-90 position? Is what we're doing is we're isolating the pelvic complex there. If we can isolate that, we don't involve any of the other supporting structures, the quads, the adductors may want to kick in when we do this if we don't isolate the pelvis. And then you can see he's doing deep breaths in through the chest, past the chest and into the stomach. So we can start to expand that diaphragm and that pelvic space there and start to contract it as well. And so we're basically, as you're going through these breaths, we're going through reps.
And before we get into the next one, I mean, this is a pretty easy one. Another suggestion that I would probably recommend just as a strength coach is not everyone's going to be able to put their feet up against a wall like that. Another option you can do is just kind of like lay them on top of a bed and lay on the floor. That way your legs are supported. So you always have that option.
Yeah, great modification there.
Pelvic tilt is the next one, Mason.
This one is a little bit harder to see. You got to look kind of close to what she's doing there in this exercise, but she's anchoring the entire posterior portion of her back to the table, just making sure everything stays flat. she's then isolating the pelvis. So the way when I'm working with people that I try to get this to click in their mind, because it's kind of a hard movement to do, is picture driving a long nail or a long screw through the top of the hip all the way through your body. Your hip is now on an axis or a hinge, and then we're going to tilt the hip on that axis or hinge, get it to isolate itself and move on its own. We're not only getting those muscles to relearn how to contract and fire in conjunction with that 40 pulses per second, but we're also allowing the antagonist muscle to start to loosen as the other muscle starts to contract and pull.
So in some ways, you're almost like while you're activating, you're almost stretching it out a little bit.
Exactly. And it's such a fluid motion. You're going back and forth as you go through those different pelvic tilts. Just a good way to kind of open things up as well.
And we're going to this next one, the glute bridge hold. Not as common on isometrics, but explain this one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say too, is a lot of people are familiar with the glute bridge, but then what we're doing as sort of a modification here is we're staying in that end range of motion, holding it there as an isometric contraction. So all of the supporting structures, quads, hamstrings, the core and abdominal muscles are contracting as well. And then as we isolate that pelvis and bring it up, we're also starting to get the pelvic floor muscles to contract and hold, become more comfortable in that end range of motion. That's really the goal with a lot of these isometric exercises, is to put that body in that unnatural position and get it to become familiar with all of those different structures that play a role in keeping that body in that uncomfortable position.
You know, in addition to that, just, you know, some of the questions might be, okay, so what are we going to do with this? How are we going to handle it? You can basically have the setting of 40 pulses per second, and that can be the actual workout. My suggestion with something like this is probably 30-second holds, maybe work your way up. If 30 seconds is too much, you can go down to 15. The goal is to try to get to about a minute holds, 2 to 3 sets, maybe even get up to 4 to 5 sets as you're working on to the next exercise. However, that's only part of this, right, Mason? We're going into this next one where we're now speeding up those contractions. Anybody familiar with direct current knows about the 500. There's some direct current that can go a little faster. Same rules apply with this one. Mason, do me a favor, break it down, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as you can see, there's a couple of different setups on the image we have on the screen here. That's because we have a couple of different options, or not even options per se, but there's a couple of different ways to attack this because of the anatomy of the body, where the pelvic floor lies and the different structures surrounding it. So as you can see, we're still going to hang out with these black pads here on the middle adductor or upper adductor. But what we're going to do is we have a couple of different options. I'm going to start with this posterior one. So this one on the back here, you can see I've got that red pad on. Ooh, he almost wanted to take a dive into my wall there. That would have been a lot of fun if everything went down there. So
you know that we're going to
get him set up more.
His name is Zeus. That's we have Stretch over here. Zeus, I tell you, we're not going to renew his contract if he keeps chaos like that.
He's a little greener than Stretch is there, so he's still getting used to the coordination and whatnot. That was going to be real fun. So
maybe he needs to work on his pelvic floor.
I need to actually plug the cords into these leads that I've got there. So, but we have got this red pad here on the top of his glute. This is going to work that posterior section. So we're sending that current up those adductor muscles, the inner thigh there, through the pelvic complex. We're going along the posterior portion there. You'll see the current will more than likely gravitate towards the back. You'll feel it along those hamstrings as it gets up into that glute area. Then what we have on the front side, bear with me as I get Zeus turned around here. But what we have on the front side here is, you'll see we talked about this black adductor placement, and then we've got this red pad on the core. You could probably move it a little bit lower as well as we do this setup, as we're modifying it, get it onto those lower abdominals and in the area of the pelvic floor. But the goal is the same as with that posterior placement. We're now attacking the anterior portion as well, getting those front muscles of the pelvic floor, those lower abdominals as well, and getting them to work synergistically also. So I know, Jake, you kind of, when you recommend this, you recommend not only doing maybe a few sets or reps on the posterior placement, but also just coupling it with that anterior placement. So you're getting a full holistic approach to it when we move into the 500 setting.
You know, in a lot of things we say with 500, it's very good on movements. So we have some other movements here, Mason, that I want you to talk through. But the movements are going to be deeper. They're not going to be as well. There is one isometric, but we'll kind of do that as well. So here's the first one.
That's exactly right, Jake. The movements are going to be deeper. We're going through larger ranges of motion now. Or in this sense, we're just having repetitive ranges of motion. So we did the glute bridge isometric holds when we were doing the 40 pulses per second. Now we're going into glute bridge reps, your traditional up and down of the glute bridge, making sure that movement is controlled, not only on the way up, but on the way down as well. We're working those concentric contractions on the way up, eccentric on the way back down. So, and then as you can see, we've got the marching glute bridge here, another modification of the standard glute bridge. So we are doing that isometric hold, but how we involve the movement now is with the lower half of the body. We've got the hips hinging. We're bringing those ankles up as high as we can. We're also making sure that on the way back down in that eccentric quad contraction, that we're also staying controlled with that. We don't want the feet to just drop down to the ground and slam onto the ground. You can see he's lightly touching those heels and bringing the next one back up.
And by the way, that is a guy doing that. So guys, you are not above this. In fact, I would highly recommend it. I have done this movement, which is why we're suggesting it. So we're going into our first isometric here, which is going to be the wall sit, Mason. What's the premise behind the wall sit isometric? Wouldn't this be on 40?
You would think that, and I know that that's kind of what we said earlier, is that all your isometrics, hold them on 40. The reason why we like to do this one on 500 is because it's part of an even smaller progression as we're getting into a larger range of movement. And as you can see on the top of the screen there, that's kind of what we're progressing into. So we start with that iso wall squat, make sure that those core muscles are stable and able to hold the body in place. If you can't do that iso wall squat successfully, then it might not be yet ready to move into the next progression, or the body weight squat. So now, as you can see, traditional body weight squat. I don't want to patronize anybody by over explaining this one, but you're just going through that traditional body squat, concentric and eccentric contractions, really focusing on where the pelvis is in position or in space as you go through that movement, and making sure that the core stays tight and stable as you go through those movements as well. You don't want to get sloppy with it.
Yeah, and I like the isometric in this one because, to your point, the squat can be atrocious with some people. If you're dealing with a lot of issues, or if you have weak glutes or weak core, the squat, you see a lot of leaning forward, not a lot of legs involved, not a lot of glutes involved. So the beauty of the isolated wall sit gets you into that position where it's forcing those muscles to work while you're using direct current to kind of help stimulate that along. And then you start to go into the squat. One thing I will say, my background in strength coaches, I never made them go deeper until that portion of their downward was at good form. In other words, I don't care how deep you go. If it's bad form, it's bad form. And so don't force the depth until you can actually get there with good form. And that's where the iso squat does a really good job.
That's a great point too. And I think that's a consistent theme. If you've got a good team around you, if you're somebody that has to train often, or even if you don't, if the advice that you hear is that somebody would rather have you do a movement with perfect form and no weight versus doing a movement with your max weight and terrible form, you've got a good team around you. That's what you want. You want that form to be good early before we start building on that. I think that follows the theme that we talk about with you lay your foundation first, make sure that it's sturdy, stable, and then start to build the power, the strength, or add the horsepower on top of things. So I think that falls right in line with that too. I think the squat is a great way to see that as well. I mean, when it comes to kinesiology, you could basically use a body weight squat as a diagnostic test to see where their form is at, where there may be deficits or weaknesses.
And again, to kind of talk about those who have questions of like, all right, which one when do I know when to use 40, when to use 500? My suggestion again is we can use both. 40 could be a way to wake it up first. Maybe it's like your warm up, and then you go into 500 with deep ranges. With reps, with 500 especially, I'd probably recommend 10 to 15 reps, 3 to 5 sets, turning up that output power in between sets. That's a pretty good combination. Or you can take 40 and that could be an exercise or complete workout. And then 500 could be a complete workout. So you have those options. This next one is the one I'm the most excited about because it's a game changer. This is the setup to a protocol that we've started to develop over the months. And this one is now a part of it. Before we get there, Mason, let's talk about restoring control, how that works, and what can we use direct current for to help that process along.
Yeah. So this is, again, this is that third stage of kind of the process that we take with direct current. And this is trying to bring everything together. So those exercises that we did on 40 pulses per second that we talked about, those exercises that we did on 500 pulses per second, we're not doing those for no reason. We're doing those so we have better control as we move throughout our day to day. And everybody's day to day is going to look different. You might be more sedentary, or you might be somebody that has to be active all the time. Regardless of your activity level, you need your pelvic floor as well as your core to be able to withhold and withstand a full day's work. And so what we're doing now is we're bringing everything full picture. As we start to bring those exercises in and introduce them, the core feels more stable, pelvis feels more stable, organs feel more supported as well. So if there's issues like incontinence, for example, pelvic floor strengthening is going to be a huge help with that.
And of course, along with that, there is something we can kind of work, and it's a non-movement. If you haven't watched this one before, I'm going to go back. I don't know, what is this, 5-6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago? Can you believe
this
that?
was number 2. Yeah.
It's crazy.
This was our second episode.
Yeah. Electricity into the water. Don't do this if you have a TENS unit. If you have any alternating current, don't you dare try this and think that you're going to get the same results. This is for direct current, and you can go back and you can check this video out. We do not talk about pelvic floor. That's been developed recently, but the same rules apply with this. With direct current, electricity has a place. And here it is, Mason. Can you talk through this one?
Yeah. People are familiar with the foot bath. If you're not familiar with the foot bath and you're tuning in, I urge you to go back and watch that episode number 2, because there's a lot of good info on why this works, how it works, so on and so forth. So for everybody that's familiar, you already know with the foot bath, your feet are going inside of the water. They're going on top of those black clamshell leads. The bigger question is, where are we placing those red leads, those passive leads? So you're going to have one that's going to be right on the middle of the core here, lower core as well. As Jake put on that slide, we recommend, and everybody's body is going to be different, but we recommend about 2 to 3 inches below the navel. So we're going for those lower abdominals here. And then what you're going to have is on the back. I have to be very careful. I'm super paranoid about that now, Jake. Like, really paranoid.
Been there.
So let me get this adjusted here.
Take your time. Don't let Seuss get injured, because we don't want to pay him any type of like
workers' comp or anything like that. No, I'm gonna just keep a hand on him here. So you've got that other red pad that's gonna be on the low back, almost in the area of the coccyx. As we talked about earlier, those muscles, they all have coccygeal in their name, or most of them have coccygeal in their name. That's because it involves the coccyx. It's going to be the last part of your spine, or more commonly known as the tailbone. So as close as we can get to that, it's going to get better activation, better connection with that pelvic floor. Rest assured, though, if you can't get that low, or it's just easier for you to go a couple inches higher, 500 pulses per second and direct current, it's strong enough where it's going to span out to the areas that you need to address. So just keep that in mind. But this is going to be what the setup is. Red pad on the front, red pad on the back, in the middle, low back. And then we have got red pad again on those front lower abdominals there. And so then you're going to do the foot bath setup. You got the black pads in the water. We're going to start with that 500 pulses per second on normal, we're going to start with 40 pulses per second, reverse polarity. So what we've got is those red pads are actually going to be activated first, start to get those muscles stimulated that we're trying to address. We do that for 10 minutes. We're going to flip the polarity back to normal, run that on 500 pulses per second. What this is starting to do is get that ground to target muscle connection. Everything starts at the ground. Everything starts with the foundation. And also, we're using the water as a magnifier, getting stronger contractions to send up that neural pathway to the area that we're targeting, in this case, the pelvic floor.
And you kind of took the words out of my mouth. A question that often comes up is, why the water? What's the purpose? And you just kind of answered that. It acts as a magnifier. We've seen a lot better results with the water as well, just kind of reducing inflammation, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. If we can start to keep those fluids moving, pull any of that junk or that inflammation out of that area, and pull some of that new blood flow, new oxygen and nutrients into that area, the better off we're going to be, the better the body is going to feel overall.
Well done. I'm excited about the pelvic floor water bath, just because I have done this a few times now. I don't have a weak pelvic floor, not yet. In spite of me joking about wearing diapers, it's just not there yet. And I'm going to continue to do this with direct current. we ended with the water bath on that one, but my suggestion, if you're new to direct current, I would almost say start with the water bath and then get into the movements as you're firing it up. What we've discovered with some of the other conditions that we use the water bath with is it does really good in kind of pulling out the kinks before you get into some of those deeper ranges. So it might prevent you from getting other injuries and give you a smoother transition to get to better movement from that.
Yeah. And I think outside of the water too, it's, if you can get them convinced past the water aspect, which we've got enough content that if you need help convincing somebody, we've got those on hand as well. But once you get them convinced past the water portion of it, it's one of the more simpler setups. It's one of the easier ones for the user to do as well, because they get to kind of just hang out and relax and really feel the effects of what the technology is doing. Then we can kind of convince them to get into more rehabilitative exercises, more movements with it as well. But a great point there, Jake, too. Yeah, the foot bath is an awesome starting point for a lot of different things.
And the water has become probably one of our more popular ones. In spite of like the pushback of people who don't know the technology, the water has been the go-to for a lot of people, especially athletes. It's like they're moving for life, and a lot of times they don't want to move or moving isn't always the best option for them. And they always oftentimes they'll lean to the water bath instead of the movement because you're getting very similar results. You don't have to move as much and the water does a lot of the work.
Yeah, exactly. Good
job, Zeus, over there, and Mason even better keeping him from falling. And we'll have to talk to him afterwards to be more prepared of not falling.
He's gonna have a harness on next week.
Listen, everybody who's out there, before we move on, we want to bring in your questions, your scenarios and real world situations that you're running into every day. This is where we take what we're talking about and we want to connect it back to what you're actually seeing with clients, athletes, patients, or perhaps even yourself using direct current. And it's a little segment we like to call Current Check.
Current check, let's go. Questions live, now within the flow. We bring the spark, we bring the tech talks live. It's the Current Check.
All right, all the rules always apply. There's no gambling during this, but what I will say is the goal is to try to stump this way the trainer. That's Mason. He's the brains of the operation. He's hard to beat, but if you do stump the trainer, we will send you a free t-shirt. These got to be legitimate questions, and it has to be involved in something with direct current. You can't ask Mason about his love life or past things. You can't quiz him about math or anything like that. It has to be involved in this. And we have a few here. Here's a good one. Here's a warm-up question, Mason. It's by Ron Gordon, editor. Ron, thank you for your question. Can your pelvic floor be damaged with athletic injury? That's a good one.
You said warm up, but this is one that you could really kind of delve into here. How I would answer this is I would say with your standard traditional athletic injuries that you see, you're less apt to see a pelvic floor injury. You're more likely to see a lower abdominal injury, an oblique injury from some sort of unusual twisting or turning motion or torsion forces. But that's not to say that a pelvic floor injury can't be possible from an athletic injury. There's a lot of different sports out there. The first ones that come to mind are things such as motocross, racing, anything like that. Technically an athletic injury if they're competing in sport. And there can be some really gruesome injuries that will involve the pelvic floor. Also things like skiing as well. If you have any sort of hip break, hip dislocation, the pelvic floor can absolutely be involved as you get into some of those more severe injuries. In terms of the standard injuries that we see in a lot of athletics, it will lean more towards those outer muscles, those more superficial muscles, but not to say that you can't see it happen at all. So, Jake, for a warm-up question, I probably delved pretty darn deep into that, but there's a few different ways you can approach that.
No, and I think you had to, and that's a really good question, Ron. Thank you. And you're absolutely correct on that. And the only way to actually answer that is to get into the depths of it, because it could have been a loaded question for sure. But a lot of benefits. I highly recommend DC for this. Now we got a couple more. One you kind of answered already, so I'm going to bring this one in. This is another good question. East to west, kids, does blood flow help with severe menstrual cramps?
Yes, definitely. Because if you're bringing that blood flow into that area, refreshing those nutrients, it's going to be a big help. I would actually urge to do the contraction setting as well, even as opposed to the blood flow setting, because if you can use that 500 pulses per second, get that pain modulation aspect in there and get things to calm down a little bit, it usually is going to bring some solid relief. I know a lot of the women in my family will utilize direct current just to bring some pain modulation in there, get things to calm down a little bit, because those muscles really, they're so spastic and so out of control that they almost need that reset or that jump to get back on track to where they need to be.
Great answer. And it's story time now, because this is I love this question because it came at a good time as far as blood flow. And one of the amazing things about most of the direct current units that are out there, not all of them have the blood flow setting, but most of them do. And so reach out to us, to let us know what, device you have if you're not sure, and we'll be happy to talk to you whether or not you do have a blood flow setting. What that means is you're able to shut off that main contraction wave, which means you're not getting a lot of deep contractions where you're risking any delayed onset muscle soreness. That can be very important to somebody if they don't want to get sore, like a workout, if they're going to compete in something, if they're an athlete, or they just don't want to get sore in general. Blood flow has the ability to do that when you shut that main current off, and then you have this bottom wave, this kind of electrical magnetic pulse that just sort of continues to generate blood flow, and it'll accumulate wherever the area has the pad surrounded by it. And you're actually lubricating the area with your natural blood flow using this device, but without risking that delayed onset muscle soreness. The reason why I said all that is there is a device that's out there that even our company sometimes, myself included, and I'm only bringing it up because I'm going to embarrass our CEO. We had a conversation with Matt, and he's like, man, I was using the blood flow on the DX500. And he's like, I could feel the activity happening with the blood flow, even though it's like you're not getting those actual contractions. One of the interesting things about the DX is that blood flow setting is relatively advanced compared to what we've seen in the past. And sometimes I would even say lean into that blood flow more so than contractions in certain cases if you need just blood flow.
Yeah, I love that too. I love that because it just builds off of my answer. It almost offers another avenue to my answer. And you're completely right. If we're talking about the DX500, especially just with that wave getting refined, we've had, the years to work on this wave, really refine it into what we know the users need, what we know that we want to see in these devices. So we've built this stronger blood flow wave. This carrier wave is kind of what I refer it to, that pulls in those new nutrients a lot stronger. One of the things too that I always tell people, we get this question a lot, I feel like, Jake, is, how do I know the blood flow is working? Especially if you don't have the DX500 and you can't feel that slight little buzz. It's always a question we get. I don't feel anything. Is anything even really going on? But you pull those pads off, you see those little red 2x4 or 2x2 squares. And a lot of people think, it's because of the adhesive, but they hang around a lot longer than what an adhesive kind of mark or square will do. That redness is that new blood flow. It's getting pulled to the surface. That blood flow wave is so strong on any of the devices, but especially the DX500, that it's pulling that new blood flow up to the surface. So there's your little piece of evidence, as well as, is the blood flow really doing anything? If you're getting those, those kind of square uniform red marks under there, it's a sign that it is doing something for you.
Yeah, and since we're on pelvic floor, I mean, that was just a dare I say, a waterfall of nerdology. I can't help myself. I wasn't going to do this today, but here we go. Good job, Mason. All day. This is you. It's true.
I'm going to embrace it at this point. I'm embracing it. I'm going to take my bow. I had my first few weeks where I was trying to fight it. I'm just going to embrace it at this point, man.
I would. I mean, yeah. Nerds are cool. You're the coolest of them all. I appreciate your questions. We don't have the time to move on we don't have the time, so we have to move on. But if we missed your question, you have questions, make sure you leave it in the comments section. We'll get to it on the following Tech Talk or a future Tech Talk. But for now, ends the current check. We're going to close it for now, but we'll see it soon.
Current check, let's go. Questions live, now we're in the flow. We bring the spark, we bring the tech. Tech Talks live, it's the current check.
now we want to shift gears and highlight something from the field. We always like to do this every week. We're seeing real people, real scenarios, and real examples of how direct current is being used, whether it's in performance, recovery, training, or just everyday life. Some are from athletes, some are from providers, some are from clients, and some are just too good not to share. And this is a little segment that we like to call the Spotlight. Check it out.
Okay, to talk about success. I mean, I understand you. First of all, did I hear that correctly? How 37? Is that how old you are?
I was 37 when that happened. I'm 39 right now. I'll be 40 in May. Just signed a contract extension, and the fact that a pro football team has faith in me to sign me up when I'm 40 years old, and I would venture to say this is probably one of the biggest reasons why is the technology I'm getting to use with the RX100, and I think athletes that aren't using it are doing themselves a disservice. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, I think most athletes find this at an older age where they could benefit so much as they're getting into the league, whatever, or weekend warriors, pickleballers, as I like to say, the Uncle Bills of the world that just want to try to move. This technology is incredible. And I think you're right.
So those that were scoring at home and have been following us may be familiar with Trevor Harris. He's a pro football player we've been working with. He plays for the CFL, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and we started working with him probably 3 years ago. He had for a rib injury. I think it was a rib injury originally, and then I don't know. Literally 2 weeks later, he had a tibial plateau break, and everything shut down. And we, everything went towards that to kind of help him rebound from that. Lo and behold, 2 years later, he won the Grey Cup, which is equivalent to the Super Bowl for us in the NFL. And you can see a lot of that progression that happens. And he talks very well about direct current, his experience of what direct current did, how he basically stayed away from the weights and used direct current to take pressure off his joints. By the way, he is 40 now. They're also in first place. They're trying to repeat. And Trevor is crushing it. I don't want to jinx him, but that's on our Rewired podcast, hosted by our CEO, Matt Dell. And what do you think about Matt Dell's hat? He's a trooper for always getting into the role. I love it.
I didn't know if I was going to bring it up, but I got to say, man, that's two spotlights in a row we've shown where Mr. Dell, our leader, has had themed outfits on. As you can tell, that episode was around Christmas time. Last week we showed the episode where he had the 4th of July shirt on. So if there's one thing about him, he is going to get involved with the theme, with the time of the year. Gotta love it. It brings that energy to those Rewired interviews.
Yeah, that's the Rewired with Trevor Harris. We'll leave a link below. Make sure you check that out. Good stuff, hosted by our CEO, Matt Dell. Every week, not every week. In fact, it's purposely not on every week because then it wouldn't be so special. But on some weeks, we like to take a minute to celebrate people, moments, stories, and remind us why we're so passionate about what we do. We found another great one this week, and we wanted to share it with you all. It's time we have a little Tech Talks magic moments. Here we go.
Hey, Jake, this one's for you. I-10, driving 70 miles an hour in the van, doing a core workout. Let's see, what am I up to right now? Oh, up to 50.
So he travels around with the DX500. He's in a van occasionally. He's hiking constantly. As you can see here, he's going into places that are like out in the middle of nowhere, and he's got his DX and he usually sends a picture to us letting us know he finds people along the way. In fact, he knows these trails so well that he's a tour guide for a lot of these people who, don't know what's going on. And then they see this direct current and like, what in the world is that?
This is my favorite shot right here. This is unreal. Look at this. He's sitting there doing a direct current workout.
Absolutely crazy. Tell Mason I'm only made it at 80 today.
I was hoping you were going to throw that in there. I love the competitiveness. This was right after our live workout last Friday.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, Joe, if you're out there, kudos to you. Thank you for being an ambassador for us in many ways, just a spoken ambassador. He's a big fan of what direct current can do. He's seen the results. He uses it to work out all the time. He uses it for recovery as he's hiking. And when I say hiking, he's not going to like your local forest preserve and doing 1.5 miles. He's hiking hundreds of miles a week. Crazy in such a good way, but great attitude. What an exciting life he has. Retired Boeing guy. Yeah, great story. That's our magic moment for this week.
As you can see, he's not parking at trails that have a parking lot with painted lines and then starting on the trailhead. He's trailblazing, not only in his hiking, but in his direct current use. Really highlights just the portability and power of the DX500. I love when you send the messages over from Joe. I'm always looking forward to an update from him because, man, his story is just so cool.
And you know, not all things apply the same. We're not suggesting that you should drive down the road going 70 miles an hour running this.
True.
You know, do that at your own risk, but that was pretty impressive by Joe. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, before we look ahead, let's rewind for a second. Last week, we talked about a topic that connects directly to what we do here at NerveOTX, and we work with a lot of MLB players. It doesn't just focus on MLB. But as you can see here, we did Tommy John's. It was a great one last week. Make sure you check it out if you haven't seen it. Mason nerded out on another level, probably almost as much as today. I think today was even better.
Probably. I use a lot of anatomy terms and technical terms today. So today might set the bar, but yeah, go back, watch last week's episode. We just had the All-Star break wrap up. So baseball is kind of on the forefront now. It's really the main summer sport. We're going to see a lot of trades, a lot of people moving around, and you'd be surprised at how much this tiny little ligament plays a role in these trades happening, these transactions happening.
For sure. And if you like the analogies that Mason gives with cars, you're going to like next week. We're opening up a brand new conversation. We're not going to give everything away. We like to keep things vague for a while, but taking another real world topic and breaking it down in a way that's simple, practical, and actually useful, using direct current and how it can help your body and your life. And in many ways, your brain, because if your body's feeling better, so is your brain. The brake pedal, the hidden reason you can't move better. I don't know. This is going to be a fun one. Mason, get your car analogies going.
It is. It's going to be a really fun one. This isn't even a car analogy. This is kind of a throwback music analogy, but really the thought process behind this is it's kind of like my mind's telling me no, but my body's telling me yes. That's the premise of what we're talking about is muscle guarding, inhibition. Why am I not able to do this even though my mind is saying, please do this? You know, we're going to break that down and talk about it. Don't want to give away too much though.
Okay, here we go. Now, today's episode's just the beginning. This is the one I was excited about because people are probably going to be surprised we did this, but here we go. Bam. Check it out. Today's episode is just the beginning in August, and it's going to be the first Friday in August, 9 a.m. Eastern time. We're taking this topic one step further with a live pelvic floor workout. Yes, I said that. Guys, girls, I don't care. You want to get your cats involved, your dogs involved. Doesn't bother me. We're going to guide you through exercises that we talked about and probably some others that you can do from home, and then show you how to use direct current during that movement aspect and answer any of your questions live so you can start putting these ideas that we're talking about in Tech Talks into practice right away. We don't want you to just have a device and think it's just for pain. There is so many wonderful things that this device can do as a byproduct beyond the pain. It's going to blow your mind.
Yeah, the feedback was great after last week's first live workout that we kind of revamped and did. I had so many people reaching out, talking about the results that they got from it, questions about it. And I think you're spot on there, Jake. We can sit here and we can talk about, and I can nerd out all day about these different topics that we're talking about. But I know a lot of people are also asking the question like, okay, I've sat through Mason nerding out for 50 minutes. Now, how do I take what he said and apply it to my situation? That's why we're kind of bringing these live workouts back. And what better way to do it than to really highlight a topic we talked about today and doing a workout with it in a couple of weeks. Give people some time to watch the episode and get ready for it.
The squeaky wheel got the oil. I don't know how many times. I probably lost count of texts of how many. When are you going to bring back the workouts? When are you going to bring? Years ago, we did it during COVID, and we pulled all of those. We did it with a smaller unit. We actually did it with the PRS. which is the same as the Flex Doctor. So if you have that, there's still a few that are out there, but this is on a different level. You know, this is an invite to anybody who has direct current. If you have a direct current unit, you are able to participate. I would say, even if you don't, follow along, watch, see the results, because you're going to see the direct current in action. You're going to see the muscle contractions. You know, visuals sometimes say a lot more than how much Mason can nerd out, and not to minimize Mason's nerdability, but visually, I think sometimes that has a lot of power.
Exactly. And it's such an untapped kind of vertical of it too. You know, everybody's looking for it for recovery and those different aspects, but there's a whole different face of what direct current can do. And the more that we can kind of bring that to the forefront as well, the better.
We do appreciate everybody's, you know, participation, you know, over the course of, since we started Tech Talks. We've had a lot of feedback. You know, it's a mission that we've been on, you know, for probably the past 3 years. We changed the focus, and the goal was to get this everywhere. Let's spread this news of direct current so people at least know what it is, and then they can determine whether or not it's worth the time. And the only way to do that is between you guys. And that's why we're always reminding you, don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to subscribe, click the little bell so you get the notification every time that we go live, and you won't miss these live workouts. I know Joe was a little bummed. He told me, he's like, yeah, I woke up late and he's West Coast. So late to him was 6 a.m. So understand, you know, we're East Coast. He woke up late and he missed some of it. So he had to get into the tail end. If you do miss those workouts, they will still be on there. You can always go back and join again, but it's everybody's word of mouth that's going to get this message out there and educate the world.
Yeah, send the videos out. We post the links at least a couple of days leading up to. So I know I was talking with somebody this morning that said she was already sending the link out, you know, and we hadn't even done the episode yet. So go ahead, bookmark that link as soon as you see it posted. Like Jake said, the best way to stay up to date on what we're doing here, at least on the YouTube side of things, is going to be to like the videos, subscribe. And if you really want to know exactly when we're going live or what we're doing, turn those notifications on too. It'll kind of bring our videos to the forefront of your YouTube page. I know I got a lot of texts from people that have said, you know, when again is the live, or wasn't able to watch it. Is it going to be recorded? If you subscribe and turn your notifications on, it'll be right there up top for you, recorded version when we put it out too.
And don't forget, next week, you know, Sunday's the game. Somebody will be sporting the crown of despair.
I'm nervous. I wasn't nervous until you texted me that last night. Now I got nervous. I'm like, crap.
You know, I don't know much about soccer, but from what I've watched, I feel like first of all, I've learned that Argentina is a very hated team. I'm still proud of them because I thought they looked great yesterday, and it was such an exciting game. But I think we're the underdogs. Spain has just been bullying teams. I thought France was going to give them a run, and they just handled France like butter.
I mean, making France put up a donut was a big deal. I don't know. You know what they say, though. And when I say they, I really just mean Argentina, is that soccer's a 90-minute game, but we're only going to play the last 15. So I could be comfortable for the first 75 minutes. But from what I've seen from Argentina, those last 15 minutes, my blood pressure is going to go all the way through the roof because of how they've been playing.
That is true. They close like freight trains. These last several games, they just refuse to go away. And I love that passion, you know. Mason's great show. Any final thoughts on this one?
I think the biggest one that kind of comes to mind when thinking about this episode, because there's a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of muscles that are involved with it. And that's kind of the theme, is today isn't about just one single muscle. It's about the understanding that the body is working as a full holistic system. The pelvic floor doesn't just function on its own. It works together with things like the diaphragm, the deep core, your hips, your breathing, and by the way that you move around every single day. So when one part of that system isn't communicating well, the thing that I come back to is the rest of the body is going to find a way to compensate. It's resilient. The body wants to achieve its goals. Sometimes it just does it wrong. That's why movement matters. That's why education like this matters. And that's why conversations like this matter. Because if there's one thing that I hope you and I and our viewers take away from today, it's this, is don't wait until something hurts before you start paying attention to your foundation and what you're building on. The best movement isn't just stronger movement. It's coordinated movement.
Yes, it's almost too late if you wait till it hurts. And you not too late in the sense that you can't fix it. Too late in the sense that, boy, you could have avoided it. And that's what we try to help people is let's avoid the big ones. You know, today we talked about something that quietly affects nearly every person watching. You know, most people didn't even know that, you know, probably for some reasons they think it just applies to the other person. Sometimes the muscles that deserve the most attention are the ones that nobody ever sees. So here's my challenge this week. Don't just train what shows up in the mirror. Train what supports the person standing in front of it. So when you're looking at yourself, that's what you're trying to look at to improve. Take care of your foundation, like Mason said, because better movement starts there. Better performance, it starts there. Better recovery, same thing. That it starts at that point. And maybe, just maybe, the strongest body in the world isn't built by chasing more. It's built by the ground and strengthening by the floor. So thanks for joining in today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next Tech Talk.
You take a lot of bruises and nicks throughout the season, and it's a lot of stuff that'll linger. People have no idea, when did this happen? How did I get hurt? Was I feeling this? So you just gotta find new ways to keep the body fresh, and I think be honest with yourself about what healthy really is. Once I found you guys talking about the direct current, I definitely was interested, so I just wanted to delve deeper into that and learn and figure out how to really nourish my body and make it better.
With the direct current, man, I was saying about time this machine is reaching more people. This is a cheat code right here.